effect does compaction have on my soils and nutrients?
Yeah, compaction, what an issue we can have, right? We can think about plow pans as we went through school and we learned about those. But man, when we think about compaction layers, the first thing that comes to mind, limit root growth, limit nutrient uptake. So it's all about our practices. I always used to tell my students when I taught, we have a toolbox. We simply need to choose which tool we're going to utilize for it. And so to me, it's how are we going to extract the nutrients above that compaction? But honestly, we need to be thinking, what is the next thing to break that compaction for the following year? Because we know it's going to limit water. We know it's going to limit nutrient uptake. So we have to figure out what's that best tool that we can use. In my personal experience, it's not the same answer for everybody. It is a unique situation that we can help you deal with.
Gunny at Ag Explorer, what are the top 3 mistakes that you're seeing in plant nutrition?
So when you think about plant nutrition, you get that name snake oil, right? And one of the number one things that happens to turn a good product into snake oil is using it at the wrong time. So understanding that these products have to be placed at very specific times in a crop is so important to make sure you get the best ROI that you can see on your farm. Second is, let's face it, we always try to cut costs in farming, especially as we go into 2026 and we think about the economics that we have. Is cutting that rate a good thing? It is not, right? These things were designed to go out at very specific rates at very specific times. The third one we see is the understanding of technologies. As I always contend that there's a 5th R when we think about plant nutrition. There's the 4 R's that universities always talk about: right product, right rate, right time, right place. I contend that there's a 5th, and it's the right technology to actually drive that plant nutrition product inside the plant. So taking the time to understand what technologies actually help that nutrient function is really important. I think that's a mistake that we miss as an industry.
I want to know, do biologicals actually work, and how can I tell?
Yeah, so that's a hot topic, right? We all want to talk biologicals. This is how I like to look at biologicals. We have to be putting them in for a specific reason. We can't simply dump a bunch of bugs in the jug and dump them out. Are we wanting to maximize nitrogen use? Are we wanting to maximize phosphorus? Are we wanting to try to solubilize nutrients out of the soil? That's how I believe that we should look at biologicals. How do they work? I think we can look at it a couple different ways. Obviously, yield is the final point, but can we look at tissue tests? Can we see, hey, what are my nutrient levels doing? So I think the biologicals is a really big conversation, and we need to be specific about what we use and why we're using it.
Gunny, how do you actually know a product is actually paying for itself?
You know, to me, you got to see it for yourself on the farm. And you go out and you test new products probably every single year.
Absolutely.
And take a look at new opportunities. So you need to see it for yourself on your farm. And Corey, you know, for you, if you invest $15 an acre, are you looking to just get $15 an acre back?
No, that would be a loss to me.
That'd be a loss, right? This is not for fun, right?
No.
We're doing this farming for profit, right?
Yes.
So we want to see that incremental profit on that acre. And that's where you have to take the opportunity to measure what the yield difference was and apply that investment per acre and put it on that return on bushels and really do that math that way.
Right. Yeah, I want to see 2 to 3, even 4 times. ROI.
Exactly. That's what we shoot for.
Yep. Gunny, with your experience at Ag Explorer, what's the best way to measure ROI on a nutritional product?
Too many times in farming, we take a look at the total acre investment that we have to put a crop out with seed, fertilizer, chem, all the inputs that you have from rent and fuel and equipment and labor. And we want to lump that all together and put it in one big spend. The thing that we have to do when we measure these extra micronutrients, these extra technologies with plant nutrition products, is you have to look at the incremental bushels that you produce. So let's say I invest $10. Notice I said invest and not cost, right? It doesn't cost $10. We're looking for return on this investment. So I want to see that specific return. And if I invest $10 an acre and we get a 10 bushel return on corn, that's $1 per acre that it costs us for an investment to put that crop out. So you have to measure against the incremental bushels. And that's what you have to do, is look at just those bushels.
This is a rare opportunity for me, getting to talk to the author of a white paper. Not even sure I had a lot of exposure before this, but as Tanner with Farm for Profit, excited to talk to Dr. John Murphy here with Ag Explorer, the director of agronomy and apparently an author as well. So we're going to dive into your white paper on the importance of emergence and vigor and the study that y'all did with that.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when we think about how we estimate yields at the end of the year, and you guys spent some summer and used to be in the banking industry, so you understand the significance. We want to kind of get an idea of where are we. And that first number, no matter what crop it is, it can be corn, soybeans, wheat, right? It can be cotton, rice, is always how many plants per acre. And I always, when I used to teach, we had that yield component analysis. And we never get to go back and fix that, or we get to go back and change that number. So when we think about putting programs together and we think about products, that's the first point that we have to really impact yield. And so that's why we went through and we did this study. And we chose to do one in a little bit different area. This was done down in Arizona.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was done in Cotton in Arizona because we wanted to show how our products will work across that whole spectrum. Sometimes we kind of put ourselves in this corn, soybean, wheat, but when we use agronomics, it works across all crops.
So what did you discover as you went through the study and counted to stand?
Yeah. So we went through and we did 6 replications because I always think it's important that we replicate, right? We can make something work once all the time, but doing it 6 different times, what we looked at was just changing one variable, right? We wanted to keep it simple.
Yep.
So we simply did upward and we chose to not do upward. And we did it side by side fields. And what we found over 6 replications is that we averaged 2,500 more plants per acre when we put upward versus when we didn't utilize upward. I'll be honest with you, that's a big number when we're thinking about establishing yield.
Yeah, when you look at the charts in the paper, it's
Yeah.
a very stark difference.
Yes.
So what does that mean then as far as having that uniform emergence and
Yep.
having the more plants per acre? What does that do to potential?
Yeah, and so that's what builds all of our potential, right? We like to talk about using other foliars and other PGRs down the road, but let's be honest, that 2,500 plants right there is a substantial amount of yield. And so when we think about building it, we've got to start with that solid foundation if we want to capture that yield and have success at the end of the year.
Yeah, so something that I read in there is you talk about solid agronomics gives real economics.
Yeah.
It's so clear to see what the ROI is here on Upward.
It is. And I love that we get to talk about that, right? Because if we can make changes or we can make recommendations that are based in science, that's where the value comes. I mean, I look at you, you spent time in banking, you farm right now. You know, I can make a recommendation one year, but if it's not based on anything, it doesn't work, you'll never come back to me. And so I love that. And it's kind of become our mantra, right? Solid agronomics is real economics.
Is that why these white papers are so important to AgX and what you guys are putting together?
They are. It really tells our entire story, right? We could take upward and stay on it, but it's the entire story of how do we drive success for year after year. And I mean, I look at my own family. I want to pass my farm on to my sons. The only way that happens is if we drive success every single year. Otherwise, we're playing with people's livelihoods.
Well, it's important to have these types of studies to be able to back up the facts that you're sharing with everybody, but then also provide those resources for you to go check those out. So make sure you hit the link in this video to go find the rest of this paper and discussion, as well as the other research that AgX has been putting together. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
If you found the Emergence White Paper helpful, tell us why in the comments. What piece made you stop and think? Give the video a like. We're going to be putting out content like this all year long, field tested, grower focused, so make sure you're subscribed if that's valuable to you. Now, let's move from white paper to real conversations. Here's Dr. Murphy with David Rao and customers in North Dakota.
Hey, well, welcome back to our next edition of From the Field. This week, even though we're up in North Dakota, we're about 40 or 50 degrees warmer than we were a couple weeks ago over in Indiana. But I've had an opportunity this week to spend some time with David Rao, our agronomist in North Dakota, and we've been having some really good conversations about what does it look like to get a crop started, but then also get it into that early vegetative phase. But David, before we get into that, talk to me a little bit about where we are. I love North Dakota, absolutely beautiful, but one of the things that really surprises me is the diversity of crops that we have up here. So talk to me a little bit about where we are and what our crop rotations look like.
Yeah, thanks, John. We always like having you in North Dakota. One thing I love about North Dakota, as John mentioned, the diversity. You move from the eastern half, where a lot more of the traditional corn and soybean rotation, and as you move farther west, we have everything from sunflowers, canola, small grains, chickpeas, lentils, you name it, we have in North Dakota. Right now where we're at is in God's country, in Linton, North Dakota, in south central North Dakota, with good friends here from Maverick.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about just the diversity you have. I think at one time we counted there's like 12 or 14 crops, right, that you guys are growing. Now that has to create some issues when you think about like herbicides, carryover, residual. So what does planning look like as you kind of think about all those crops?
A lot. It all starts now, I guess, in the wintertime, and going through working with a good agronomist as well, and just mapping out what you're thinking like for the next 12 months, I guess. As far as rotational restrictions go on your herbicides and those deals.
Definitely.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so introduce me a little bit. Talk about where are we, and then introduce me to these guys that we've had a really good conversation with for the past few hours. And let's start to talk about some agronomics of early season.
Yeah, so again, I mentioned we're in Linton, North Dakota. I would say south central North Dakota, I guess you'd call it, somewhere in there. As you move this way, more traditional corn and beans, a little bit more. Got some sunflowers as well, and things along those lines. Maverick Egg is a beautiful location. They do a great job here. I have Eric and Bryce.
Nice. So guys, this week we really want to focus on what we're going to call the hidden half. So as we kind of get out in the cornfield or soybean field, canola, right, flax, whatever we want to think about, we do a really good job of focusing on what's above the ground. And we need to, right? We want to talk about plant health. We want to talk about weed control. We want to talk about insects. But there's so much that happens under our feet. It's almost like it's hidden from us. And I think we can really break that down into two broad categories. I think we can talk about seeds, seed placement, and early season germination. And then we can talk about the huge biological component that we're going to find under there. So let's start though with seed placement. So here in North Dakota, when do you guys get in the field, and what do you find really helps drive success to get that plant out of the ground and get it off to a good start?
Seed bed preparation, I mean, we're technically, I would say predominantly 90% no-till. And there's some strip till in the world. But yeah, early season, vigor seems it's driven from the planter pass. Residue management, furrow creation. Technically, it probably starts more in the fall that people don't realize, but those are three things that I feel we struggle with every year.
So talk to me a little bit about residue management, because we were kind of joking, we all want to have residue, but a lot of times we can call it trash, right? So talk to me, what do you guys do? You guys are big into precision planting. What are things that you recommend to your customers to help manage that residue, to get it into the seed bed so that we can get good soil contact and get it going?
It all starts with a good row cleaner.
Yeah.
Row cleaner and row cleaner maintenance are something that get overlooked every year.
Definitely.
That's probably one of the biggest struggles when you go walk a complaint field, that it all came back to the planting pass.
Definitely.
And it just wasn't done correctly. Not that they did it wrong for the equipment they had, but that's been a struggle for us.
And I think it's important to keep that in mind, because then when we go back out 90 days later and we want to do a yield analysis, what's the first thing we always count? It's plants per acre, right? We get a little bit of flex, but there's not enough flex to overcome that. So as we continue to think about, man, how do I maximize that plant per acre? It's great that we get a nice clean seed bed. But then I think about, we put that seed in the ground, whether it's corn, it's soybeans, it imbibes that water, right? 30 to 50% of its weight gets imbibed into water. And then we start to think about that root that comes out. So what are things that you guys are doing to enhance that environment around the root? Because I think it's so important, because the plant lives off the seed for the first 2 or 3 leaves, but it has to be transitioning to what that root is going to do and pull up. What are some things that you guys have done, or David, that you see out here in North Dakota that helps us in that area right around the root?
We've done a lot of on-seed seed treatments,
Okay.
early season PGRs that have really affected, the cold planting.
Yeah.
And then have shown a very good response in our geographical area.
Definitely.
Let's start with, I would say, a good liquid in-furrow product just to get it up and going.
Yeah. So
Doesn't have to be
let's.
a lot, but
I love that. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it's about getting that placement, the timing, right? We always talk about those R's, right? When we think about our CCAs. So talk to me, what do you guys run up here, and what kind of success do you have with it?
so we run like a lot of a 50-50 polyortho.
Okay.
3 to 5 gallons just to get it going. Seems to have been working pretty good, because we don't always plant into ideal soils.
Sure.
Sometimes we're out there, we're flirting, it gets a later spring, and it's those temperatures that ground could be 50 degrees when you're planting, 45 at night and 60 the next day, so we have a lot of variability there.
Or cold rain or something
Yes.
in there. I like to have something with a good zinc base as well.
Definitely.
Something with zinc, we all know how for cold tolerance and emergence along those lines. We just talked last time on humics, as far as adding those in as well. So there's a multitude of things we can do. But in an no-till scenario, I would argue probably the biggest thing is getting out of the ground.
Definitely. But I think you guys brought up some key things, right? Whether we're talking about humics, or we're thinking about zinc, or we're thinking about a nice seed coat when we're our seed treatment on there. It's about getting it up out of the ground, and it's about enhancing what the plant already wants to do. Because as you brought up zinc, David, right? What does zinc do? It helps with auxin formation, which is going to give us a better root structure. What do we all want early? Well, if it's going to be cool and it's going to be wet and we have nice cold rains, we still have to extract those nutrients and put them up in the plant. But you brought up an interesting thing. You talked about humics, right? So talk to me a little bit about what are you guys doing with humics and why do you like it?
We've gravitated towards the humics to buffering unbalanced pH is where we're directed towards. I mean, predominantly more in our low pH areas is where we're placing them heavily.
Definitely.
I would argue we have more pH issues than we realize.
Oh, yeah.
I think we don't pick it up in your traditional, unless you're truly grid sampling or doing something with soil samples. Like,
Yeah.
I think you miss a lot of that. So I think that's where we get an increased benefit out of the humics we didn't realize in the beginning.
Oh yeah, and we were talking earlier, right? When we think about humics, it helps us hold nutrients, right? A massive negative charge to it. So it can help hold it right there. But we also know it helps with our root formation again. It almost sounds like a broken record, right? We go back to how can we make that better? But then it also helps with soil biology. And as I think about things that are hidden under our feet as we walk a field, soil biology has to be one of those key things, right? You take a tablespoon of soil and there's more bacteria than people have ever lived on the earth. And so when you think about soil biology up here in North Dakota, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts? What are you kind of thinking along those lines?
We don't understand it.
I think that's pretty common though, let's be honest. If someone says they understand it, we probably need to be a little bit leery. But when we think about soil biology, it drives everything that we want to have, right? It drives nutrient mineralization, whether you're talking nitrogen or phosphorus. And we all know that the price of phosphates this year, we have to be more efficient with what we're doing. And so as we think about that other hidden half, it's that soil biology part. And sometimes we know words, right? Like bacillus, pseudomonas, right? Things like that we know can help drive it. But it's talking about how do we enhance it. And I love it. You guys up here are a lot of no-till, right? You go a little further south in my region, we have some cover crops. But it's all about enhancing what's already happening in the soil. So talk to me a little bit about what benefits you've seen in terms of no-till, organic matter, carbon accumulation in your soil.
I would say we have, from adopting no-till, we have probably doubled organic matter in a 20-year time for how poor we were. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's what we're doing, it's what we're not doing.
Okay, so I like that. It's not necessarily what we're doing, but we're not doing. So kind of talk me through, right? We're kind of all that age. We remember, Old War plows, running through fields with a disc 2 times, then a cultivator 3 times to get everything prepped. Talk to me what you mean by maybe it's not what we're not doing.
More just how we're stewarding the land. I mean, you don't see the land blowing away like it's not, we just had no structure to hold it. What the tools they had, they were doing what they did. But I think people are adopting farming practices, quicker every year, just knowing that what we were doing was not long-term sustainable.
Definitely, and organic matter is important, right? And we kind of think about, what does it do? Well, we always think nutrient or nitrogen credits, right? You get a little bit of phosphorus, a little bit of sulfur, but also water holding capacity. I think you guys said you're like 18-inch precip band on a good year.
We're closer to probably 16.
16.
Which half of that coming in snow form. So,
but it's really water limiting. And honestly, even where we are further south, we're in the upper 30s to low 40s. But we always run out of water. Let's be honest. And that organic matter that we have under our feet acts as a giant sponge, right? Every couple percent, we can actually add 10% or so to our water holding capacity, which we always run short on. I don't care when it is or what crop you have, right? We're going to run short on that as we go through. So I think that organic matter is important. But I do want to go back, though, to tying back together the soil biology and the planting, right? And so we think about what else can we do that is going to help us extract those nutrients. And I think a hot topic keyword that we have right now is mycorrhizal fungi. So David, I know you're a big fan of mycorrhizal fungi. So talk to me a little bit. Why do you like mycorrhizal fungi and what are benefits you've seen from it?
Well, it depends where you go, but getting phosphorus out of the ground is always a hard topic, especially if you have canola in the rotation, because it actually inhibits mycorrhizal fungi activity, I guess you would say. So having something in there to offset that, to help extract those nutrients, get them up into the plant, like you say, is how I kind of view that as one part of it. So
I think that's really interesting, right? As we think about canola, we almost have that lag, right, following a canola crop because it doesn't associate. And we love mycorrhizal fungi because, like you said, it harvests nutrients, right? And it makes our root mass larger if we want to think about it with those filaments or the hyphae that are found on it. But it does it almost for free. It just takes a little bit of carbon from the plant, and then it secretes those organic acids and those enzymes, which are going to harvest that back in. And let's be honest, we know that we have pH issues no matter where we go, and phosphorus is really susceptible. High pH, it ties up with calcium. Low pH, it ties up with iron and aluminum. It doesn't matter which way we go, we're all going to have it, right? And we're going to limit what we can do from that. So I think it's interesting to tie all of that together. So guys, I always think it's interesting as we travel, I love to ask a question about what is going to enhance your early season yield this year. Because let's be honest, prices are challenging. I don't feel like necessarily all of our commodities come into balance with one another, but we still have to raise a crop, right? And we have to figure out how to do it economically. And I think getting that plant established and going early is probably one of the most important steps, right? If you have a run early, you're not going to have that performance late. So I'm going to work my way down the line, but I'm going to ask you if you could tell me one thing that you've learned in your career that helps us get the plant off and going early, what would it be? So I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Here we go. So one thing that you've learned.
Patience.
Patience. Okay, so talk to me. When you say patience, let's be real. We get it in the ground, and if you're like me, we want to go dig and see if we've got germination. So what do you mean by patience?
Optimal timing. I mean, there seems there's a window every year.
Yep.
You technically, you want to be between the lazies and the crazies. Don't be the first one out and don't be the last one.
Can I steal that? I love that. We want to be between the lazies and the crazies. But I think it's so important, right? We get in and it's wet and we have sidewall compaction and we can't get that branch in.
Yep.
And so it is important to be patient, and it's hard, right? We get everything ready, we want to roll. But I think that's a key thing. All right, so David, right, you're farmed up here, right? You're a multi-generational farmer. What's something that you've seen really help get a plant off to a good start?
I think it's the most important task because as we talk about different phases and going throughout the year, no matter what we do after that point, you can never go back and add more plants. So add on to his early comment about being patient. Our ground here can be incredibly variable, and we can go from highs and lows and waiting for that soil temp to be where it needs to be. But the biggest thing is you can never go back. So making sure you do it right the first time.
I like that, right? Short of a replant, we're not going back to put a few more in. So I like that, right? But it ties in. We've got to make sure things are fit as we go through. All right, you've had the most time to think. Most pressure's on.
Yeah, but it ties like the timing right and starting clean. Like,
like that.
plants don't like competition early.
Yeah.
So when we've started clean the right seed bed and what we've done early, we've seen way more response to things that we can do early in the plant's life than anything ever we can do later in the plant's life.
I like that, right? Get rid of that competition early as we think about it. Well, I think that's perfect. Well, like I said, as I've traveled, I continue to learn more and more, and I get an opportunity to sit with a group of gentlemen like this, and I continue to learn. But I would like to encourage you, right, as we think about the planting season, which for some of us is already upon us a little further south, but we're within probably 60 days of most people getting out and rolling. Make sure we're thinking about the small things that we can do early in the season that really happen under our feet and appear hidden that are going to give us really big benefits as we continue through the year. Definitely want to encourage you to join us next month as we continue with crop production and we start talking about what happens in those vegetative or architectural phases and what can we do to continue to develop yield as we move through the season. I appreciate that you joined us.